Well, hey y'all. So this one's a little different. I don't think you can see me, but I'm here. I hope you're doing good. Actually, I'm about to go to bed. I have my glasses on, but I know I haven't been on in a while, so I thought I'd give you a little bit of a different scene and some different background noise. So, um, here's what's on my mind, and I hope that you find value in it. So, I have this little wooden plaque at home, and it says, "Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less." And what I hate about, and I guess hate's such a strong word, but I guess the worst part, I would say, of, trying to heal from just being hurt, being betrayed, things like that. The worst part of that is that it feels like you're totally out of balance. It feels like you are very selfish. And I'm not saying that you are, but it can feel that way, right, from my experience, because you're trying to make sense of what you went through, and it just sends you down this huge rabbit hole of research. And so, you wind up spending a lot of time on your healing, and so it's sort of, like I said, it throws you off balance, okay? And so the ironic part is, and this is just all my thought process tonight, okay? And I just felt called to share with you all. The ironic part of all this is, let me get over here where maybe you can see me a little bit. There are some Bible verses, first of all. I've been trying to spend more time doing Bible study, and I'll drop those verses for you all in the description, but there's some verses that basically they're talking about God's way of fasting, and it's really interesting. I don't even remember how I came across this particular verse. I may have just been flipping through the Bible. Sometimes I'll pray and ask God for guidance, and I'll flip through, and whatever turns up for me is, I feel like, just meant for me, to meditate on, to study, things like that. But I'll drop those in the description. But essentially, he's talking about, it's in Isaiah, I believe, but he's talking about that God will, I guess, offer you more of a connection if you are lending yourself, giving of yourself to those who need help in some way, the hungry, the oppressed, things like that. And so, in the past, before you went through whatever this is that you went through, okay, before your life upheaval, before this huge life transition, before betrayal, whatever it is, it's sort of like we all establish a routine, and it becomes so natural to us to live in that routine that I wouldn't say we take it for granted, but it's just not something we think about. We just do it. We just live it. And we're not thinking consciously like, oh, okay, we're living in balance. You're not evaluating yourself, your life, all the aspects of it. So when you're healing, it thrusts you into a state of evaluating yourself, your life, others, and what you've been through. You're kind of thrust into this task of having to think about things, because you want to make sense of them. It's natural. But that in itself is what throws you out of balance. And so, going back to that quote that I opened with, I think it's so interesting. Just a small set of words, just a little quote, a movie quote, a quote from a famous writer or poet, whatever it is, can just really be like this little key that unlocks, another level of your awareness out of nowhere. It's like I don't know, I just think it's pretty cool. They're treasures. But anyway, that quote that I mentioned earlier about humility, it's not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. First of all, I would say don't compound the complexity of healing by criticizing yourself, judging yourself for all the time you're spending on yourself while you're healing. It's just a natural result, I think, to be thrown out of balance when you're trying to heal. It's totally natural and necessary. Same thing with a physical injury. You're going to be resting for some time. And so when it's a spiritual injury and psychological injury, all that kind of stuff, then it's like when I say you're thrown off balance, it's like you feel like your head is just spinning, trying to make sense of things. Okay, so I would just say don't compound what you're dealing with any kind of criticism that you are being selfish. And yet, take into consideration that if you find yourself sort of just running in circles with your efforts of trying to heal over a long period of time, I would consider not only hobbies that will take your mind off. It's sort of like that can still be the focus of your attention, but I think we need to break that up a little bit and give yourself a little bit of time away from it. And that can be hobbies, new hobbies. It can be learning. It can be Bible study. It can be, one of the things I love is just researching word origins and things like that. It can be looking into things you've never known about, like myths and legends and folklore and old wives' tales and just anything to get your mind off of, this loop that you may find yourself in when you're trying to heal. But the other thing is, consider throwing in some things that are selfless acts that are good for others, And the unique part of this is that when you have gone through betrayal, it's probably affected your ability to accurately perceive other people out there. You may be really questioning your own judgment of people, and that may sort of add to any kind of time that you're spending alone, in isolation while you're healing. You may have been isolated intentionally, some controlling people do that, but it can be a way to reintroduce that balance into your life. And by doing so, just selfless acts, anything at all that you can do for others that's intentional, And in so doing, I think that we can start to not only give ourselves a break from all this healing work that we're doing, but we can start to reintroduce balance into our lives, and we can start to slowly reintegrate interacting with others in a healthy way. And I think that would be a wonderful way to naturally recreate trust, or not recreate it, but that would just be a natural way to get to a place of trusting your own judgment when it comes to other people again, So just some thoughts that I'm having tonight. It's been really beautiful here at the beach. I know you can't see it now. I'll drop some pictures at the end, but this time we're staying up very high, my daughter and I, and I typically like to be down on a lower level, so you can sort of feel the breeze a little bit better. It's pretty hot out here right now. And the sea spray, the ocean spray, the mist, it's really nice usually when you're a little bit closer. Or you could just walk out there really easily without elevators and all that. But anyway, so I hope that this has just been helpful in some way and encouraging. And again, don't forget to check the description because I'll put in those Bible verses. But lastly, I would just close with this, to remember that, you never know what a person's going through, and it can feel so overwhelming trying to sort out what you've been through that you can forget that there are, billions of people on the planet, and there's got to be a significant percentage of other people that have gone through similar things as you. So just keep that in mind, and it may not be people in your local vicinity or in your family or people that you currently know that can really relate to what you've gone through, but there are others who can relate to what you've gone through. And so just stay encouraged and hang in there. And I hope that you're having a good day, good night, wherever you are. Thanks so much for coming along to listen. And I'll be back soon with another message. So thanks again. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.